Welcome to Attican Plays Railway Empire. All right, hi, this is Attican and welcome to another Railway Empire video. This is a redo of Patchwork. We're going to set it up on very hard and we're going to redo it as the lady. And there's a couple reasons. Number one is those of you who've been with us through this journey through Railway Empire and watched a lot of my videos, you know I'm not real fond of mediocre play. And I felt like the play that I put out there on that first go around with this DLC was mediocre and I can't stand it. Got to redo it. I also did not feel like it was strong enough, and so I decided to pull out the big gun and play as the lady, because the lady is unbelievably strong. And so we're going to focus on getting passenger and mail lines set up and spread out and get as many of them as we can around the map. And we're just going to, and the reason we're doing this is the lady, of course, gets all those bonuses for passenger revenue. And the other thing is that passenger revenue is so cheap and easy to set up. And the challenge with this particular scenario, particularly right here at the start, is because you have the regions and you can only get to your one region of Hesse, and it has limited resources. It's very hard to go down the city building / freight revenue path early because you don't have all the things you need to make your cities truly grow all the time. You can grow them some. You can put in potatoes and wheat, and you can run city to city automatic lines or freight lines and move goods around. But it's really hard to get something strong set up. So what we're going to do here is set up passenger and mail lines. We're going to run a lot of trains. We're going to have great train service, so these folks, if they want to go between these cities, they can go. And we're going to have spread, as I said, kind of a rapid expansion, passenger and mail line all over the place. So we're actually going to ignore city building for quite some time and expand our footprint. And our plan is to get out into at least 2 more regions and have city-to-city passenger and mail lines running in all those regions. Now, you might look down on the bottom right of the screen. You'll see I'm running 1.9. The new beta has come out. It's version 1.9. You'll also notice something very interesting. I cannot make a land bridge. Just learned how to do it, and it doesn't seem to want to let me have one. And I tried multiple times. I've gone back and tried it, kind of off camera, and I don't know. I don't know if I can do one. And I finally decided, you know what? That's okay, because I really felt like it was a little bit of, with all due respect to Leonidas Savalas, who is an awesome player and a great guy, I really felt like it's an exploit. And I wanted to play it straight. So we're going to build bridges and tunnels and whatever it takes to get the job done. But the good news is, because we're playing as the lady, we can afford it. So we're going to run these beautiful lines with lots of bridges, and that's okay. So we're going to set up here a line. We've got a line going from Castle down to, see, I'm still trying to get that land bridge, and it's not coming. It just won't, it won't come. I finally here just decided, okay, all right, I can't do it. Maybe they fixed it so that you can't do that. So anyway, we're going to run a direct line from Frankfurt to Worms. We've already got one from Castle to Frankfurt. As I said, we're going to run a lot of trains. And basically, once we get these 2 lines set up, and you can see they're costing us some fair amount of money for the track, but and the trains, because the lady gets no discounts here. They don't cut her any breaks. But once we get this set up and running, we're not going to be doing much else for a while except watching them and collecting our funds. So we're going to collect funds here and not worry about city building or trying to haul freight, because remember, the lady gets a 15% penalty on all her freight revenue anyway. And she gets no bonuses in terms of owning industries. So it just makes sense with her to really get your passenger and mail revenue going and make it as strong as you can, because you can make really good money running passenger mail even between small cities like these. Particularly with the lady, you can really rake in the bucks. So we're going to, again, set up these passenger mail lines, and we're going to kind of sit back and watch. And I'm having a little deja vu. This sounds like the description I gave of that first scenario in the South America, the Crossing the Andes DLC, because once you start with the lady, you kind of build out what you need, and then you just sit and watch for a while. And that's what we're going to do. We're just going to sit and watch and get all these trains rolling, and then go from there. Now, the one comment I would make on this is I have not done any route optimization studies for the passenger mail lines to get a real baseline of what's the optimal number of trains to run. I ran a lot of trains, I'll just tell you. I ran 4, 6, 8 all over the place, and very happy with the results, I will also add. So another thing we're going to do, because of the way the express lines work, and because we don't want to have, and this is something that came from Tridem, and Leonidas has also mentioned similar things, that we don't want necessarily to have these engineers and stokers on these lines taking away our express status from all the other trains on the line. So we're not going to hire any engineers or stokers. We're just going to hire conductors, because they can give us bonuses. So all we're going to do is hire conductors and try to have as many express lines as we can, as long as we can, as often as we can. And occasionally the AI will probably out-research us, and we won't be able to keep them, but that's okay. We'll get them back as soon as we can, and we'll still make great money anyway. So like I said, now we're going to just watch. We're going to watch the system run until we have $600,000, or excuse me, yeah, 600, that's right. Correction, 600,000 Reich marks. Nightwish was kind enough to point out that the Deutschmark, which is what I'd said before, Deutsche Mark, or however you say it, that didn't come along until after World War II, I believe it was. So the Reichsmark, which was the German currency back in this time frame. So we need 600,000 Reichsmarks to allow us to expand to another region, and that's exactly what we're going to do. See there, I'm turning down an engineer. So really, I had to make a conscious effort to not hire that guy, but that's too bad. And well, we just saved money. We didn't spend money hiring him. We're not going to spend money paying him, and we're certainly not going to spend money having him take away, have his train be an express and 5 other trains not be an express. That's the big deal. That's the deal breaker right there. So again, we're just watching and looking to see what our costs are, and we know we can buy Thuringia or whatever it is for 600,000, and we're looking at other places to expand, because we really want to have a strong economic footprint. And with the lady, that means connect a whole bunch of cities with passenger and mail lines. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit till we get up to that money, because we're just going to watch this thing. So it didn't take us very long to get that $600,000, even with this tiny little bit of infrastructure we have. There's basically two lines, 2 city-to-city passenger and mail lines. So we're going to go out here and buy this Thuringia or whatever it's called, and we're going to go out to Weimar, and we're going to do, you can guess, a passenger mail line between Weimar and Kassel, and start raking in the money from it. And as I start doing this one, I revisit the land bridges again just to see, can we possibly build them? Have they truly taken them away? And I couldn't do it. Now, I don't know. Again, I don't know. That could be my failing, because I'm far from an expert at building land bridges. But they don't seem to work. And if you'll recall, right here is the part where I showed you on an earlier video. This is the sweet spot for building land bridges. It actually gives you a double track and triple track and quadruple track without even having to make any changes. And I couldn't even make it start. So anyway, back to what we're doing. We're going to put in a passenger mail line between Castle and Weimar. That'll give us 3 total city-to-city lines. We're going to run probably 6 trains, 612. This will put us up to about 20 trains. No, 16 trains we're running after this one gets set up. But you'll see the money just keep on coming in. And I actually goofed up here. I kind of got halfway between. I was thinking about putting in maintenance early, and I went away from that just because of the pressure of making the money and moving in this scenario. I went back to the technique of, updating the trains, replacing the trains periodically. But I did put in a couple of repairs, so it was sort of a half in, half out kind of thing. But anyway, so here we're waiting to get enough money to go ahead and build that next line. And the task that completed is probably the $200,000 quarterly revenue. So you notice we did it in the second quarter. That's about as fast as you can do it. I guess it might be possible to do it in the first quarter, although nah, I don't see how you could. We're in great shape here. We've got our first 2 tasks. Now we have to accumulate $600,000 because the way the script is written for the scenario, they're thinking, okay, now we need to teach you how to buy access to a new region. Well, we've of course already done that. We've got our new region over here where Weimar is all set up and ready to rock and roll. So again, we're going to hire conductors only. We will hire a security guard if it pops up at the right time to be able to put on a freight line that's going to run directly into a city. Like eventually we'll run those pigs into Castle to the meat industry there, and that would be a good candidate for a security guard. Otherwise, the engineers and stokers are just costing us money. So let's see, what else is there to say? So we're going to do this one, and then we're going to wait a while. So I'm actually going to fast forward again, and we're just going to let it run while we accumulate $1.8 million so that we can go out and, sure enough, buy access to Rhineland. Now look at how your money just racks up here. We've got almost $1 million in cash, and we are debt free. We've paid off all our bonds. We're just saving up enough to make sure that when we open bonds up again, we will have enough money to buy access into Rhineland, which is at $1.8 million, and still have some money left over to do something to get started on actually taking advantage of Rhineland. And so there we go. We've opened up another region, and now we're going to do, can you guess, we're going to run city-to-city passenger mail lines. We're going to go from Worms to Saarbrücken, down to Ralph Lenz's home, and we're going to then run up to Koblenz and then on up to Cologne, and that will give us 3 more beautiful, profitable city-to-city passenger mail lines that are going, and just increase the rate at which we are making funds. And you'll notice so far we've played for 1 year now, and we have not done anything towards city growth. We haven't moved any freight anywhere. All we're doing is setting up passenger and mail lines, making sure that we have a truly strong economy. We need that engine to fuel our growth and to allow us to move quickly as we move through this scenario. So with your permission, or even without, even if you object, I'm going to fast forward again through the build out because I can tell you exactly what's going to happen. Of course, this passenger mail line, then one up to Koblenz, one up to Cologne, as I said. So let's move ahead until that one gets built. and then we'll see where we want to take this. All right, so now we've got ourselves, let me count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got 6 city-to-city lines, all running passenger and mail only, and they're all, they're all making us big money. And so we've got to buy 2 industries. We actually, through the fast forward, you missed it, I got an opportunity to buy the bakery in Frankfurt. It wasn't making money, so they just kind of handed it to me for a couple $100,000. That was lucky. Thank you, computer owner or whoever. And so I decided to save money and go out and buy the cheapest thing I could find that I knew would be useful, and that's those logs over in Rhineland. Now we're going to think about city growth. And right now, if you see, I'm almost like doing the gaming equivalent of stuttering, because I'm just kind of looking around thinking. And what I'm trying to do here is think, okay, now I have used almost a year and a half of my time. It's May of the 2nd year, and I haven't done anything with city growth yet. I haven't run any freight. I'm not trying to grow anything right now. We get a little bit of growth from the cities just naturally, but there's nothing going on here. And I need these 3 cities, Kassel and Frankfurt and Worms, to grow quickly. So I'm trying to think about how do I want to do this. So what I decided to do is I don't want to get in a situation where I have any kind of throughput issues whatsoever. There's no time for any mess ups on throughput. Can't have these log jams, can't have too many trains trying to go into one of those auto signal stations or any of that stuff. This has got to flow. So my original plan is to put a warehouse attached to each of my 3 target cities, Kassel, Frankfurt, and Worms, and bring raw materials in there, the logs and potatoes and wheat and so on and so forth. So here's our first warehouse. I'm going to attach it to Kassel. And it start out with the regular size, so it'll only accept 3 goods. So the first 3 goods we can grab are the wheat, potatoes, and logs, which is great. Those are 3 that we have access to. And what I'm thinking here is warehouse to warehouse exchange. So the potatoes and the fruit will end up going into this warehouse at Kassel. And then the warehouse down in Frankfurt will take in the wheat, which is very nearby, and the logs, which will be coming from over there to the west. And we'll see what else comes in there. But we want to run a line up here. We want a dedicated freight line. It's very important with the lady that you have dedicated freight. One of the things that actually makes her a little clumsy to play, or you have to really plan it out. And really, she really cries for warehouses, because you've got to keep your lines separate. You don't want your freight lines getting over there, freight trains getting over there on your passenger line, because if they do, you'll lose all your express statuses, and your deliveries will be slower of your passengers, which means you can charge less money, which means you're making less money, and now this cash generating machine that she is gets bogged down in running behind freight. So you got to have separate lines. And one of the things I really try to do now from here going forward is be very careful to make sure that I have the right kind of dedicated lines wherever I need them. And if I have to spend a little extra money to make sure they work correctly, that's what I do. And the beauty of the lady is she makes so much money that you can do that. You can actually have that economy, that the blessing of riches, and build things right. You don't have to skimp and save because you're just really up against it for time and money, because the money is going to come rolling, and it still has been the whole time. So again, here comes warehouse number 2 to attach to Frankfurt, grabbing those same 3 goods. And here we're going to bump up the logs and the wheat, because we're going to bring those in from outside. And the plan, of course, is to move them up to that warehouse in Castle. So this is, I'm going to rename this one the Logs and Wheat warehouse. I'm thinking logs and wheat will come in here. And I don't know why I had a brain cramp there and took the wheat off it. I'm not sure what I was thinking. But down here, where this is going to be potatoes and fruit, potatoes for now and fruit eventually, because it's right down there just below Castle. And then we're going to have a third warehouse. At least this is the plan. The plan was to have a third warehouse down in Voms, and it would bring in milk from down south and whatever else. And I added beets in, thinking that the beets would be coming into this one from here. And you'll see that that changes slightly as we go along. So now I'm looking to say, okay, well, I want that third warehouse down here in Voms. And this one was frustrating. I couldn't quite get this to fit the way I wanted it to. It's just a tight fit. It's hard to get one in there where you want it to pick up VOMs, and particularly with automated signals. Now in hindsight, I probably could have gone with just a regular, maybe a large warehouse, a big warehouse they call it, without the auto signals. It probably, I could have put it just to the north of VOMs. In fact, I think that works. But with the auto signals, it's just too long. It's not going to fit. That, see there, I got a flash of green for a second, but that's only when it moves out of VOMs there. So only when it moves out of VOMs catchment area, or well, when its catchment area is too small or too far away. So change of plan. Going to run a line directly into VOMs, into that into a station, and just basically take stuff from the warehouse up there in Frankfurt. So now the goods are going to go to Frankfurt, with the exception of potatoes and fruit, which will go up to Castle. The rest of them will go into the warehouse in Frankfurt and then be brought down to VOMs. Now, one piece of research, I've mentioned this before, but it's really great to target that Iron Duke. I know it's a Germany map. You love to run German trains, but that Iron Duke is so much cheaper, and it's actually a slightly better train than the Timmet, the starting train. It's a better train for less money, and when you get it and you do your replace all your trains, you actually make money. So you're actually being paid or compensated for updating all your trains, which is great. So there again, I'm taking a quick look to see if I can get a land bridge. Can't do it. All right, that's okay. We'll live without them. So I'm going to set up a line. This is the line I was talking about that's going to be for bringing supplies from the warehouse up here at Frankfurt down to VOMs, and actually set it up with 2 lanes, and I was thinking I would alternate between that platform 2 and platform 3 to help with throughput into that station, because I'm not going to need, I know I'm not going to need a lot more track, because I've still got the other station out there that I can expand and use it, and I've already got my express connection going down to Saarbrücken. So I thought again, we're having 2 tracks alternating, setting up a train going to the first one, setting up the next train going to the next one, and then when you copy in groups of 2, and that way you keep getting even distribution across those 2 platforms. So now we're going to start running potatoes into the warehouse up at Castle, and we'll get that one set up and merge it into this. The left 2 tracks, as we're looking at it, are our freight line, and that goes, and so all we have to do is hook into that freight line, and now we can haul freight up to the warehouse at Castle. And then other nice thing about when you do use warehouses as your kind of your gathering point for your goods, a single small station suffices to at the point of origination. Now the frustrating thing, I've probably said this before, but you don't get bonus credit, so it does us no good to have a security guard on this. See, the one just popped up to hire, but he's not going to help us at all on that line because we don't get any bonus for the money. You do get paid for that freight, but only as it's consumed by the cities, and they don't apply the security guard bonus. So there you see, I looked at it, I almost bought the security guard and held off and said, nope, it's not going to help me. So there we've got a potato line running into the Castle warehouse. And it's time for railroad police of our research, because now we are going to start running freight. We are going to start making money on it. I don't know actually if those bonuses applied going into a warehouse. Does anybody know that? If you do, put it in the comments. Like the railroad police, does that the extra bonus you get for freight revenue apply if the money is coming through a warehouse? I have to confess, I don't know. And honestly, I'm not going to go study to figure it out. So if anybody knows, let us all know. So now we're setting up our line to run our grain into, I keep calling it wheat, I know it's grain, it's really grain. Run our grain into the warehouse in Frankfurt. Very, very simple. Use our Jan Jansen returns and off we go. Okay, so now we've got wheat coming into our system. And the only other thing we really are set up to run would be logs. And we bought that logging camp down there to get rid of that requirement of owning two industries. And right now I'm back in the again, the gaming equivalent of stuttering as I kind of think about what do I want to do here? What do I want to do? Ah, yes. So what I'm thinking about here now is it's fine to run some goods into these warehouses, but we need our city-to-city freight lines so that we can move the things that we manufacture in these cities need to be shared. This is a 3-city cluster. I'm thinking of this as a 3-city cluster, and that means that I need a direct freight line between each of the cities. So that's what we're doing here, and it has to be separate from the already established passenger mail lines, or we'll mess them up and they won't make as much money. So I'm thinking about, okay, do I want to go over here and do a bypass around that warehouse to get over here to the city? And then what I decided was, thank goodness, and this is again where the lady's making you good money and you can make, I think, better decisions, because in the past, this is where I would have goofed it up on this particular scenario. Because trust me, I've played this scenario, this first few tasks on this scenario, many times. It's great. I love the scenario, but it's also hard. And I've goofed it up a few times. And the way I've goofed it up is by not having the right throughput down here. And this little move right here is going to help a ton. What we're going to do here is set up the line going up to Frankfurt. I'm thinking about it as a bypass, and then I realized what I really should do is build the line to Frankfurt first, the freight line to Frankfurt, and then worry about the bypass. So we're going to expand the station in Frankfurt, and we're going to run a double track into a dedicated line there, dedicated platform in Frankfurt, and have our freight hauled on that new line, and the other line can continue to haul our passengers and mail and make us some good money. And we'll get that set up. And you can see here, because we can't do land bridges And because we can't do three wide bridges there, I got to build a whole new bridge. It costs a lot of money, but so be it. So, but that's the whole point here. Rather than trying to scrimp on that and go around that to the left and use that same bridge to get the freight going, I decided to, it's kind of like spare no expense and do it right. Kind of a John Hammond approach here, spare no expense. So, let's see what's going on here. We're just waiting on a few funds because this is expensive. These bridges are expensive. So again, we can wait on a little bit of money and build out our track and then run it on up to the platform, which is a little tricky because we've got to deal with the bridges again. It's got to come out, but it's also got to get over a little, just barely, away from that bridge so we're not trying to build a three wide bridge. So we've got to come over a little bit and then come back. And that's one thing I'm sure we all agree. We would love to see it. The game allow you to build wider and wider bridges. I think that they would look really cool, and you wouldn't have to have these little odd bends in your lines. And another thing, if you're watching this, you might be thinking, well, you keep saying you're making so much money, yet you seem to be waiting for money. Well, one of the keys to the game, to really stay on top of the game, particularly early, is spend your money, invest your money as quickly as you can. So when you see me waiting on funds, it really means I'm spending as fast as I can. It doesn't mean the economy is necessarily bad. It means I'm just blowing through that money as quickly as I can in order to keep building a stronger and stronger economic engine to increase the rate at which we're making money. That's the whole deal. So now we've got a straight line to Frankfurt. I recall at this point I'm mulling over, do I want to just maybe run a pass-through line right through that station for the city to city? And again, I pat myself on the back. I made the right decision and said, no, spend the money, build the bypass, and keep it all nice and clean and neat and fresh and beautiful. And even build this other freight line and run it down here and hook it into a station up here, which is what we're wanting to do. We're wanting to have a station-to-station, city-to-city freight line between Worms and Kassel. So we're going to have a freight line on the east side of our passenger mail. So our passenger mail line will run down through the middle, and we'll have freight lines surrounding it on either side. So we'll get this beautiful superhighway of track, which, as you guys know, I truly love. And again, what I decided to do, rather than build the bypass first, we're going to run a line that goes from Frankfurt all the way up to Kassel. And that establishes our freight line on the east side of our passenger line. And then on top of that, then we can just hook into that with our bypass, and that way Worms will have its line ready to go to run freight up to Kassel. So again, spending the money as fast as I can, so we'll wait for a little bit more money. All right, so now we can set up a freight line running from Frankfurt to Kassel. It's only going to take a couple of trains to get us going here, because we're just going to, haul the bread up to Kassel and the meat back down to Frankfurt if there is any. Then we'll set up a line between Frankfurt and Worms, and between Worms and Kassel, and that way we'll have our goods being able to be moved between the cities. And I did them as freight only rather than automatic, because I don't want to siphon off the passengers and run them on these slower freight trains when I can save them up. Hopefully, you may lose some, they may go away, but didn't want to siphon off the business from our passenger mail line, because that's where the big money is. So now we can build it's easy to build a bypass around Frankfurt, and this line here will end up being our line to run between Worms and Kassel. And because we've got the ability to bypass the city like this, because we didn't go over and get into that already busy area where we're running the wheat into the warehouse and the warehouse goods down to Worms, by keeping this over here and building this separate line, it allows everything to flow very cleanly. So once we get all this going, we're still just setting up the growth. So it's September of 1851, and we're still setting up the growth. We haven't really started growing these cities. We've got a little bit of wheat coming in, we've got some potatoes coming in, but we're not even moving those back and forth between the warehouses yet. And we're just now starting to get our city-to-city freight lines set up so that we can haul manufactured goods. So we still got a lot to go to get set up for this, to get the growth going. And right there I see a bonus, and that one's going, We've got a meat industry right there nearby. They're giving us a bonus for hooking up those pigs. Can't hardly turn that one down. So we'll set up a quick little line here, run 2 or 3 trains into Cologne, and open up a new track for it, dedicated to keep it away from our passenger line, and that can make us some money. That freight line will be profitable, and they practically paid us for it anyway, because we got a $220,000 bonus. So investment's almost zero. It will make profit, and it might even help stimulate a little bit of growth. City growth, that is. So here's one, because we're running directly into a city, we can set up, we can run our refrigerator car and get a bonus for that. And if we had a security guard hanging around, we could put the security guard on this line, or on one of these trains, and make a little bonus on that as well. And I may have missed one, who knows, but have you counted all the promoters we've gotten so far? 0. I haven't seen any promoters. I remember thinking they're right about here. I'm thinking, where are they? It'd be nice to have some promoters to get this city growth going. So now we're going to run our logs out to the warehouse near Frankfurt. And here we've got this big old, we've got these 2 rivers and mountains to circumnavigate here. So this is going to cost a couple of dollars. And that first line there, I looked at that for a second and said, wait a minute, don't need that. It's a cool looking, impressive bridge, but let's go over here and take advantage of that little area coming out of Koblenz, and see if we can't do something a little wiser by using that as kind of our jumping point to get over to the other side. So it's interesting there. You get that tunnel. Then if you bring it out and turn it into a bridge, it actually costs more. So I thought that tunnel was kind of cool. And if you were one to ride on your trains, that would be a cool place to take the train, go across a bridge, into a tunnel, come out of the tunnel, and across another big bridge across a big river. That would be pretty cool. I may even have to do that. I don't ever do that. Some of you get on me about that, but I may have to actually get on a train and ride it for a few seconds. Trust me, it won't be very long. I'll get bored, but I might ride it for a second there. Anyway, here comes our logs into our system. And remember, we still don't have the movement out of these warehouses. So we're not sharing the potatoes down here to Frankfurt. We're not sharing these logs we're just now setting up, or the wheat up to Castle. We're not sharing anything with Voms yet. They need their lines set up as well. But you can only do one of these things at a time, so we're going about as quickly as we can. See there, I almost bought that stoker just out of habit, but managed not to. Now, where we want to get there, I just circled it. The one that I really love to have in this time period is the standardized components. It reduces your cost of locomotives by 30%. We're not playing as the engineer, so we're not getting any cheap locomotives. So we really need to take advantage of that if we can, and get those prices down would be great. And of course, my style, I tend to run a lot of trains, probably too many trains anyway. So anytime I can get the price of the locomotives down, that's a good thing. So now we can set up our line for our logs to go into our warehouse, and then we'll have the first three basic building blocks: the logs and the wheat and the vegetables. I'm calling them potatoes, vegetables. All right, so let's cut this one off right here. It's getting pretty long. We're at December 1851, so we're almost 2 years into this scenario, and we're just starting to get our city growth set up. We've got our warehouses set up on two spots, and we've got wheat, logs, and potatoes going into the warehouses, and we've got our city-to-city lines established to haul the freight. And we're just about there to start city growth. Now, remember that we're 2 years in almost, and we're just starting our city growth, which is the hardest thing to do in this early phase. And we've got to move very, very quickly. We've got to be done by June of 1853 with 240,000 people in these three cities. So we've got a lot of work to do. But we're off to a great start in terms of establishing a strong economic engine, because we have Weimar to Kassel, Kassel to Frankfurt, Frankfurt to Worms, Worms to Saarbrücken, Saarbrücken to Koblenz, Koblenz to Cologne. All those lines establish passenger mail only with the mail car and dining car, and some conductors out there scattered about on some of the lines, and we are making really good passenger mail revenue, and we're now starting to see our freight come in. So next episode, we will continue to develop this and get this freight going big time, and really get this thing rocking and rolling to get our city growth, and see if it is even conceivable that we could grow these cities in a year and a half. In a year and a half, we've got to really grow these cities big time. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it'll help you become a better player, and I hope you'll join us for our next Railway Empire video. Thank you.